Hi, I'm Ben Newman. I study coronaviruses, and let's try to answer your questions. All right. So, the first question for today is from Nancy. Sorry it took so long to get to this, but thanks for waiting, I guess. What choice did you have, right? The question is, does the efficacy, like how well it works, of the vaccine vary according to age, specifically over 65? That is a question we've got a lot lately. And so, to answer it in the shortest possible way, we don't know, but it looks pretty good. You don't come here for the shortest possible, nonsense answer. So let's get into it. So I pulled up each of the studies that is proper phase 3 placebo-controlled randomized trial. The good ones where they are effectively done with the preliminary phase of testing and have approval. So there are 3 vaccines that are through that, and those are the ones you know. So our Moderna, our Pfizer, and our AstraZeneca. The others are not that far along. Even the ones that are approved in some places with sort of emergency approval, like the Sputnik vaccine, which is actually called GAM COVID Vac, and the Chinese COVID vaccine that's adenovirus based, which is called Ad5 NCOV. Those, although they're being used, are still ongoing in the phase 3. So they have not yet fully published their phase 3s, and so all we've got are interim results there. That's what's going on. So for those, we don't know because we don't really have enough data to be able to say. But for the others, we got more data. So let's go in first. Top of the class, Moderna. mRNA 1273 is the name of their vaccine. If, you run into somebody in the street and they ask you, now you got it. They did, I think, the best job of breaking down by age exactly what's going on. So let me pull this up. Here, I'm going to hide my little self. So what they found is that in 18 to 65-year-olds, they had 95% effectiveness, with a range somewhere between really 90% and about 98%. So that's pretty darn good. And the range on there is the uncertainty. I mean, it's a statistical term, but you can imagine it as like, what if we were wrong about one person? What if one more person had got sick or had not got sick in a particular group? How much would that change the outcome? That's like a rough back of the envelope way to kind of get a feel for where those ranges would come from. They also looked at older than 65-year-olds, and they had a good number of them in there. About 3,500 got the vaccine, about 3,500 didn't get the vaccine. And the average was 86% effectiveness, so a little lower. But what you see with this one is that whereas for the young people, it was a really narrow range. You're somewhere between 90 and 98% effective, and all those are really good answers. With the older people, the uncertainty was such that at the low end, you're maybe 60% effective, and at the high end, you're maybe 95% effective. So we know it's somewhere in that range, and yeah, the 85% is where it looks, or 86% is where it looks like it should fall now, but we'll see when more data comes in. So that would say that that Moderna vaccine works pretty well in the young and the old, and gives very strong protection, but you get more variability in older people, which kind of makes sense. There are these things that happen when we age. Some stem cells they're there, they look like they ought to be able to do the job, they just don't do the job. And we think this happens with certain classes of cells that are part of the immune system as well, in some cases, but not in every case. And you can't really tell until you put in a vaccine and just, see one of these cells shrug its shoulder and say, what do you want me to do with this? So Moderna, yeah, pretty good in regardless of age. All right, second one is the Pfizer vaccine. So this is, what is it called? BNT, and then it's BNT 162b2. Yeah, there you go. Again, yeah, very important information. They did the best job in breaking it down by little bitty age groups, and they had more people in the higher age groups. I think total. So they've got an over 55 category, an over 65 category, and an over 75 category. And when you get to over 75, you're only talking about around 800 that got the vaccine and 800 that got the placebo, but still, it's something. And they broke it out just like that. So what they show is pretty much the same thing. Because remember, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are about as close as you can get to being identical. Yeah. In their goals, in the way they are developed, in the way they are put in the way that they should work. Yeah, so yeah, you'd expect about the same thing. It's just that you get a little higher dose, at least in theory, with the Moderna vaccine than with the Pfizer. And that's just the thing that they went forward for approval with. They could have picked a variety of doses, and in earlier stages, they did try a variety of doses of each of these things. So, what do we show? Well, we show about 95, 96% for the young people, ranging from about 80% to about 98 or 99%. So that sounds like the same numbers to me. But when we get to the older people, you still end up in the same range, average of 93, 94, and in the very old people, they didn't get any that happened to get sick out of that 800 that were there, and so they say it's 100% effective, but don't buy that. What you see though in the older people, because the number of people in the groups is going down, the uncertainty goes up, and so your range is again somewhere between about 67% and close to 100%. So we don't know for sure that the range of effects is going to be any different in older people, but that's the way the data look right now. But part of that is because we have smaller sample sizes for the older people. So, yeah. Either way, it looks like this one works pretty well, regardless of age. So, yeah, that's a very good sign. Then you go over to the AstraZeneca, and bless them, yeah, they tried so many different things in their phase 3 trial. They had them going on in a couple different countries, which some of the other groups did as well, but they were giving different doses to different groups at the same time, and each of the groups ended up kind of small, and overall, they started out, they say in the paper, they started out trying to categorize by age to see if age made any difference. And they realized they just didn't have enough people that were in the older age groups. And because they were split in 3 different groups that got like different timings and different amounts, he really couldn't say much at all. So for the Oxford vaccine, we have no idea. But I would imagine it's about the same. The one thing to point out, they did all these different trials. I think there might have been 4, but one of them was like split into 2 parts. It was like 3 and 1 split into 2, so it's like 4 little bits. And they had one that worked really well. They gave about 90% effectiveness, and then the other 3 were down around 60 or 70% effectiveness. And the one where they got the higher effectiveness was both a really small trial, which tells you that the error bars on that are probably going to be bigger, or should be bigger, yeah, they gave less vaccine. Usually that's not how it works, but the immune system is a weird thing. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't even know that you can call it an immune system. It's a bunch of cells that are kind of linked to each other, but each one's like a little independent agent trying to figure things out for itself, and they're all real dumb. Yeah, so yeah, it's yeah. There's a lot of variability sort of built into there. Yeah, you can tell I'm not an immunologist by training. Yeah. Yeah. One other thing that we should point out is that the first 2, the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines, both looked also by race. Now, race is one of these categories that at a biological level is pretty much nonsense. This is a cultural distinction that people make because boy do they get excited about this sort of thing, but you can't look at somebody and, for example, tell if they're going to be a good organ donor match. I mean, yeah, organ donation would be a lot easier if that was the case, but no, like you look like you'll do. Yeah, don't do that and then put an organ in. That's not going to work out well. But they each showed that people who identify as people of color, and in one of the studies they break it down into different ethnic groups, And they showed that the rate of protection was as high or higher than in the group that were called Caucasian. They call themselves Caucasian. So this is a vaccine that looks as though it's going to be for everybody, young and old, wherever you're from. Yeah, wherever your great grandparents happen to be from. Not that that matters all that much. So this it's looking pretty good, I would say. And hopefully this is going to go some way toward eventually getting everybody on board. Because I know there's resistance from different communities for different reasons, generally centered around like trust, like I don't trust you or whatever. But I guess that's a topic for another one. For now, that's the skinny on vaccine efficacy in older people, and I threw in a couple extras there too, just in case you were wondering. So thanks very much. This has been Ask Dr. Ben.